The early morning sun filtered through the glass panels of the Mercy Crown Fertility Center in Ikoyi, Lagos, casting gold streaks across the sterile white walls. Bella Puccini sat nervously on the edge of the clinic bed, her hands resting over the thin cotton gown they'd given her to wear. Her heart thudded like it was trying to escape her chest. This was not how she'd imagined her Saturday. She'd barely slept the night before, her mind running in loops. The hospital bills, her mother's weak heart, the soft-spoken neighbors who had tearfully asked her to consider being their surrogate. They'd tried for years. No baby, just grief and prayers. Bella had agreed to consider it, not out of desperation, though that was part of it, but because something about helping them felt right. They had loved her like their own. Her mother's condition had worsened, and time was slipping away. The cardiologist's words echoed in her mind. If we don't do the surgery soon, you'll lose her. She needed money, fast. And so, after consultations, screenings, and endless paperwork, the fertility center called her in for one final gynecological evaluation. Nothing serious, they said, just routine checks. Only, something felt off today. The nurse had called her name. Annabella Puccini? Close enough, she thought, even if her name was just Bella. The woman at the front desk smiled as she handed her a file. Everything's been arranged. Just head into room 5. But it was room 6 she was supposed to be in. She'd checked her messages 3 times. Still, Bella was too tired, too distracted to argue. She stepped into room 5, where a second nurse barely looked up from the chart in her hands. Lie down, Miss Puccini. This will be quick. The next few minutes felt like a blur, a mix of mild discomfort and medical terms she didn't understand. She asked a few questions, but the nurse responded with practice calm. You've done all this before in previous cycles, she said with a warm smile. Bella didn't correct her. Perhaps it was standard lingo. Perhaps the woman thought she was another Bella. It was only after she walked out of the room and glanced again at her message. Room 6. Evaluation only. Do not proceed with insemination. That her blood ran cold. She froze. She turned around. But by then, the room was already being prepped for the next patient. 2 weeks later, Bella stared at the plastic stick in her hand like it had slapped her. Positive. Another test. Same result. A third. Still positive. She was pregnant. And she hadn't even started the surrogacy process with her neighbors yet. She hadn't slept with anyone. She wasn't dating. She hadn't even held a man's hand in a year. She was 25, poor, tired, grieving her mother's deteriorating condition. And now pregnant from a hospital mix-up, she returned to Mercy Crown in a panic, only to be met with stiff shoulders and stammering apologies. Yes, there appears to have been a transfer error. We deeply regret this. You were mistaken for another patient. And then the final punch. You were inseminated with the sperm of Mr. Waylen Danjuma, CEO of Danjuma Empire Holdings. Please rest assured we are looking into. Bella didn't hear the rest. Her ears rang like church bells in a firestorm. Waylen Danjuma, as in the Waylen Danjuma, the elusive, gray-eyed billionaire who never smiled in newspapers? The 40-year-old businessman with a reputation for being unshakable and terrifyingly calm, the man whose face she'd seen on magazine covers in traffic, Africa's most powerful bachelor, and now she was carrying his... She staggered back, then threw up in the clinic's hallway. Across town in Banana Island, Waylen Danjuma stood in his penthouse office, staring at the report from Mercy Crown like it was a scam. This must be a mistake, he said coolly. No, sir. It's been verified. His assistant swallowed hard. The woman was misidentified. Her name is Bella Puccini, a civilian. She came for a basic exam. There was confusion. Wayland's face remained unreadable. Only the vein pulsing in his temple gave him away. I pay those people to be precise, he said. They injected my genetic material into a stranger. Yes, sir. And now she's pregnant? With triplets. Silence. Deafening. He turned his back to the glass window and stared at the skyline. Lagos glittered below like a web of diamonds and lies. I want to meet her, he said after a long pause. Privately. No press. No noise. Bella wore her best shirt to the meeting, an old white blouse with fraying cuffs, and still felt like a fraud as she entered the private conference room in Victoria Island. Waylen Danjuma sat at the table, perfectly still, in a navy blue suit that probably cost more than her life. His eyes, gray, sharp, and unreadable, locked onto her the moment she walked in. She couldn't breathe. He stood slowly. Bella Puccini? She nodded. I'm Waylen Danjuma. I know, she whispered. The silence between them stretched like a tightrope. You're pregnant, he said. Yes. 3. Apparently. You're sure you're not lying? He asked, voice ice cold. Bella's jaw clenched. Do I look like I'm lying? He studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he pulled out a chair. Sit. They spoke for 30 minutes. About what happened. About the scandal it would cause. About what came next. You're carrying my blood, he said simply. That means I protect it. Her stomach twisted. What does that mean? I want a contract marriage, he said. Nothing emotional, just an agreement. You carry them safely. I protect you, provide for your needs. Then we part ways. Bella blinked, stunned. You want to marry me? Temporarily. And if I say no, I'll still support the children. But it will be public, messy, and your name will be everywhere. Her head spun. Her mother was still on medication. Surgery was needed. She had nothing, no job, no father, no safety net. And now this man was offering stability at a price. Her throat tightened. What about my mother? What about her? She needs surgery. Waylen reached into his suit pocket, slid a card across the table. Go to St. Edward's tomorrow. Say nothing. Everything will be handled. Bella stared at him, her eyes blurring. I hate you, she whispered. I'm not asking you to love me, he replied calmly. I'm asking you to protect our legacy. Waylen Danjuma wasn't easily rattled. In 40 years, he'd weathered border betrayals, hostile takeovers, and political blackmail. But nothing could have prepared him for this. A woman he had never met, Bella Puccini, now carried triplets conceived from a medical mishap. And worse, he was beginning to realize she wasn't the type to be bought, bullied, or silenced. He sat at his glass desk inside Danjuma Empire, holding Skyscraper on Ozumbambaju, hands steepled under his chin. The Lego skyline blinked behind him. Cold, chaotic, beautiful. Sir, his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Your mother is on line 1. Again. Not now. She'd been calling since the press sniffed around Mercy Crown's records. Wayland's jaw tightened. The vultures were circling already. Back in Surulere, Bella sat on the edge of her mother's narrow hospital bed at St. Edward's. Her fingers trembled as she held the envelope they'd given her. Procedure fully covered under private premium insurance. Benefactor anonymous. Tears blurred her vision. She didn't need to guess. She knew who it was. She looked over at her mother, Mama Puccini, who was finally resting peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her breathing was steady. Her cheeks had color again. She looked 10 years younger. Bella clutched the envelope to her chest. She hated him, and yet a part of her had begun to thaw. Just a little. 2 days later, she stepped into the sprawling mansion in Banana Island, the kind of house you only saw in TV dramas. White marble floors, tall glass walls, a staircase that twisted like it belonged in a palace. Waylen was waiting at the top of the stairs. He looked different in a T-shirt. Softer, somehow, but those eyes, storm gray calculated, remained unchanged. Welcome, he said. Bella gave a tight nod. I don't want to be here. He descended slowly. You're here because you agreed to the contract. I didn't agree to be your prisoner. You're not. You'll have full access to every wing. Medical care, private suite. Staff will report only to you. No press, no noise. She crossed her arms. Why go this far? He paused. Because they're mine. Bella scoffed. The babies you didn't even want? I wanted them. I just didn't plan on you. That night, Bella wandered to the mansion, taking the cold elegance, modern art, polished wood, quiet wealth. Everything was too clean, too perfect. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum. Her private suite was larger than her entire family flat. There was a walk-in closet, a rainfall shower, a cream velvet headboard. And yet, she couldn't sleep. She missed the squeaky fan in Mama's room, the sound of frying dodo at dawn, her neighbors chatting through the walls. Noise, familiarity. Here, silence was suffocating. Waylen stood on the balcony that overlooked the Atlantic, watching waves crash into the rocks. His phone vibrated. Madame Waylen Danjuma. His mother. He sighed, then picked up. "Waylen," came her sharp voice. "Do you understand what the scandal will do to our name? I'm managing it. She's from Surulere, and she has no pedigree, no training, no sophistication. And now she's what, your wife? She's the mother of my children. Children you weren't supposed to have with her. Mother," he warned, "she will ruin us." Waylen stared at the horizon. "Let me be clear. If you or anyone in this family so much as whispers a threat in her direction, I will burn this entire empire down myself." Click. He tossed the phone on the glass table beside him and let the waves drown out his fury. The next morning, Bella woke up to a knock. A young woman stood at her door, holding a silver tray. "Madam, good morning. Chef prepared breakfast for you. Would you like it on the terrace?" Bella blinked. "Chef?" "Yes, Ma." She followed the housekeeper to a shaded patio where freshly squeezed juice, steaming akara, yam porridge, croissants, and pap waited. A light breeze carried the scent of ocean air. It was paradise. She wanted to hate it, but she was hungry, and she was pregnant with 3 humans. She sat down and whispered to her belly, "This doesn't mean I forgive him, or like him, or trust him." One of the babies kicked. She smiled for the first time in days. That evening, she wandered into the massive living room and found Waylen seated at the piano. She didn't even know he played. His fingers moved with discipline, almost like a man trying to remember how to feel. He stopped when he noticed her. "Didn't know you were watching," he said quietly. "You don't look like the type that plays piano." He shrugged. "I don't. Not often." Silence. Then Bella blurted, "Why me?" Wayland's brows lifted. "What do you mean?" "I'm sure you could have had any surrogate in Nigeria. Why were you doing it in the first place?" His eyes darkened. "My board was getting nervous. No heir, no stability. My enemies were circling. A child secured my legacy." She looked away. "So this is all about power. Isn't everything?" Bella stood. "Not everything, Waylen. Some of us just want our mothers to live. Some of us want peace." And with that, she walked away. Later that night, Waylen stood outside her door. He didn't knock, but he did something he'd never done before. He spoke to the babies. "Hi," he said softly, hand resting against the door. "It's your father. I'm not very good at this. I never had an example, but I promise to protect you. And your mom, even if she hates me." Behind the door, Bella clutched her pillow, eyes wet, heart pounding. The Danjuma family lawyer, Mr. Allowale, looked like he belonged on the cover of a courtroom drama series. Crisp bada, salt and pepper beard, gold-framed glasses that slid down his nose whenever he glanced over a contract. He sat in the Danjuma mansion's formal lounge, facing Bella and Waylen with a thick document in hand. "This agreement outlines the terms of the marital contract between Mr. Waylen Danjuma and Miss Bella Puccini," he said smoothly. "Valid until the birth of the children, renewable based on mutual consent. Confidentiality, housing, medical care, allowances, and public appearances are all covered." Bella stared at the paper like it might explode. Waylen didn't flinch. Mr. Allowale adjusted his glasses. "Clause 12 specifies that both parties shall remain civil, avoid public scandal, and—" "I'm not a scandal," Bella snapped. The lawyer blinked. Waylen turned his head slightly toward her. "He didn't mean it that way." Bella folded her arms. "I'm not just some girl you're cleaning up after." "You're not," Waylen said, his voice low but firm. "You're the woman who's carrying my legacy. You have more power than you think." That silenced the room. After the papers were signed, Bella was moved into the master wing of the mansion. A stylist was brought in. So were a nutritionist, a private nurse, and 2 nannies on standby. Everything she could possibly need was handed to her, but none of it felt like a gift. It felt like a gilded cage. The staff bowed too much. The chef prepared too many courses. Even her clothes had price tags that made her stomach twist. She didn't want luxury. She wanted normal. She missed her mother, missed home, missed the smell of Gary roasting outside her neighbor's flat. Waylen, meanwhile, seemed unchanged, always composed, always unreadable. But sometimes, just sometimes, she'd catch him watching her, quietly, like he was memorizing her without meaning to. On a quiet Thursday morning, she found herself on the balcony with a glass of freshly squeezed mango juice. Staring at the ocean, Waylen joined her, hands tucked into his pockets. "You signed a contract," he said after a while. "But that doesn't mean I expect you to smile." Bella didn't look at him. "Good, because I don't have much reason to." He nodded once. "Would it help if you visited your mamour?" Her eyes darted to his. "What?" "I've arranged for you to have unrestricted access to St. Edward's. A driver will be on standby. You can visit as much as you like." Tears pricked her eyes. "Why are you doing all this?" Waylen turned to face the sea. "Because I can." That weekend, Bella visited her mother for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. Mama Puccini looked like a different woman. Brighter, stronger, already planning how to open her Acra stall again once she was discharged. "You look different, Bella," Mama said as she peeled boiled eggs from her hospital tray. Cleaner, softer. "I feel trapped," Bella murmured, helping fluff her mother's pillows. "Trapped?" Mama chuckled. "You're in a palace. I didn't ask for any of this." "No," Mama said gently, "but maybe God gave it anyway." Bella didn't answer, but as she walked through the hospital corridor, belly now beginning to show, she whispered to her unborn babies, "I hope you know none of this was supposed to happen, but I'm doing my best." Back at the mansion, Waylen was in his office when his younger sister, Mariah, barged in. "She's a nobody," Mariah snapped. "Do you even hear what society's saying?" "I don't care." "Triplets with a girl from Surulere?" "Triplets with my wife," Waylen corrected. Mariah scoffed. "You've never even looked at a woman without pedigree before. You're being reckless." Waylen stood, suddenly towering, the sharp edge of his jawline tense. "I've built this empire from ground zero. If people want to reduce that to who I've married, then maybe they're not the kind of people I want in my circle." Mariah stared at him in disbelief. "She's not your equal, Waylen." "No," he said quietly. "She's stronger." That night, Bella woke up to a faint cry echoing through the mansion. She wandered into the living room and found Waylen asleep on the couch, files scattered around him. His shirt was half unbuttoned. One hand rested on a sonogram photo, their sonogram. She moved to take it from him gently. His eyes opened. "I didn't mean to wake you," she whispered. "You didn't." They stared at each other for a long second. "You really care, don't you?" Bella asked. "I didn't think I would," Waylen admitted. "But yes, I do." Bella sat beside him. "Do you care about me too? Or just the babies?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, "I don't know yet, but I'm starting to." Her heart clenched. Later that week, Waylen made his first public appearance with Bella at the opening of a new tech hub in Lekki. Cameras flashed. Reporters screamed. "Mr. Danjuma, who is she?" "Miss Puccini, how did you meet the billionaire?" Waylen simply placed a hand on her back and whispered, "Just smile. Let them talk." She did. An entire country began to buzz about the mysterious young woman who now lived in Banana Island. That night, as Bella soaked in the master bathroom's marble tub, she stared at her growing belly and whispered, "You're coming into a complicated world, my loves. But you're already loved, even if it's messy." Waylen passed by the bathroom door. "Stopped. Can I come in?" She hesitated, then nodded. He walked in, eyes on her face, not her body. "I wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For choosing to stay. For not running." Bella looked at him for a long time. "Waylen," she whispered. "Yes." "Don't make me regret this." He knelt beside the tub, pressed his forehead to her damp hand, and said the softest thing he'd ever said in his life. "I won't." The newspapers called her the accidental wife. Mystery girl who stole Waylen Danjuma's billionaire heart. Blogs speculated everything from witchcraft to pregnancy schemes. But inside the walls of the Banana Island mansion, there was no magic, just cold air conditioning, marble silence, and a woman trying to survive. Bella stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her belly had begun to round slightly, just enough to make her silk robe tight. Her skin glowed, not from joy but from expensive lotions she never asked for. She looked like someone else. Madame Bella, her housekeeper Miriam, peeked into the room. "The chef would like to know if you want jollof or ad bono for lunch." Bella blinked. "Neither." Miriam hesitated. "Would you like some akara?" Bella smiled faintly. "Yes, please." With pap, the way my mum makes it. Miriam grinned and nodded, coming right up. When she left, Bella sighed and sank onto the bed. She had everything, and yet felt like she had nothing. Meanwhile, in the formal lounge, Madame Waylen Danjuma, Waylen's mother, held a wine glass like it was a sword. "She's a phase," she told her cousin, Lady Kem. "A child. She'll tire the attention and go back to whatever gutter she came from." Lady Kem adjusted her gelly. "But she's carrying the Danjuma name now. You've seen the press. He's protecting her." Rosaline's eyes narrowed. "Then we tear her apart quietly. A scandal. A mistake. She will fall and he'll come back to his senses." That evening, Bella received an invitation she couldn't refuse, a Danjuma family dinner. No explanation. No warning. She dressed in a modest navy gown, her bump hidden beneath soft chiffon. When she descended the stairs, Waylen stood waiting at the bottom, in an all-black suit that made his eyes even sharper. "You look elegant," he said. She glanced at him. "Should I be nervous?" He didn't answer. The dining hall sparkled, chandeliers, long glass table, silverware she didn't recognize. At the head sat Madame Rosaline, regal in ivory lace. Around her, cousins, board members, distant relatives, all dressed like royalty, speaking in hushed, calculating tones. Bella felt like a child in a room full of judges. "Ah, so this is her," someone muttered. Waylen pulled out her chair. "She has a name." The room fell silent. Bella swallowed hard as soup was served. She tried to eat. Failed. "So," Rosaline began, swirling her wine, "what exactly did you do before this arrangement?" Bella's spine straightened. "I was completing my degree and helping care for my mother." "Charming," Lady Kem said dryly. "And what exactly do you contribute to this family?" Bella opened her mouth, but Waylen spoke first. "She gave me something none of you ever did." Gasps. Rosaline leaned forward. "What's that?" "Peace." Bella blinked. Waylen's voice was low, calm, but unshakable. She didn't want money, or a title, or to be seen. She just wanted to survive. And somehow, she gave me a reason to breathe. Silence. Rosaline's eyes flashed. "You're blinded." "Maybe," Waylen said, "but at least I'm no longer bitter." After dinner, Bella walked out onto the patio alone, arms folded tightly across her chest. The ocean glistened in the moonlight. Waylen joined her moments later. "You didn't have to defend me," she said quietly. "Yes, I did. They all hate me." "Let them." She looked up at him. "You're used to this world. I'm not." "I know. Then why throw me into it?" He stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "Because I didn't know you'd matter this much." Bella's heart twisted. She turned away, staring into the night. "We're not really married. We barely talk. I live in a room down the hall. This isn't marriage. It's a contract." Waylen nodded slowly. "But I can change that." She glanced at him, startled. "What?" He stepped back, suddenly unsure. If you want this to feel real, I'm willing to try." Bella blinked. "Why?" Waylen stared at her. "Because when I come home and I see you, it feels like I've already found something worth losing." Later that night, Bella returned to her suite and stood before the crib that had been delivered earlier that day. White, gold trim, beautiful. She ran her fingers along the edge, thinking about the babies growing inside her, thinking about the man sleeping just down the hallway, thinking about her heart and how it might already be betraying her. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the mansion, Madame Rosaline stood by the garden fountain, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. "I want a full investigation on that girl," she said coldly. "School records, medical history, ex-boyfriends, neighbors, everything." The voice on the other end crackled. "And if we find something, leak it." Bella jolted upright just after 4 a.m., racing barefoot to the ensuite bathroom, barely making it before nausea overwhelmed her. She clutched the edge of the sink, gasping, tears sliding down her face. Not again. She had thrown up 4 times in the last 12 hours. Her stomach twisted violently, her skin pale, her entire body drained. She flushed, wiped her mouth, and leaned against the cold marble wall. Pregnancy was not glamorous. No matter how many luxury robes she wore, how soft the sheets were, how large the mansion felt, nothing could soften the brutal grip of morning sickness. There was a soft knock at the bathroom door. "Bella? Waylen." She didn't answer. "Can I come in?" She hesitated. Then, finally, "Yes." The door creaked open. He stood there, shirtless, wearing sweatpants, hair slightly tousled from sleep. His eyes flicked to her face, and his expression shifted from concern to something deeper. "Again?" he asked softly. She nodded, without a word. He walked over, grabbed a warm towel from the rack, knelt down, and gently wiped her face. Bella didn't move. She just stared at him, stunned by the gentleness of this man everyone said was cold and ruthless. "You didn't have to get up," she whispered. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "I heard you." He helped her stand and guided her to a small velvet seat by the vanity. "I've arranged for a nutritionist," he said quietly. "They'll help adjust your meals. I don't think rice and smoothies will stop this. I'll find something that does." Bella looked at him. "Why are you being like this?" Waylen met her gaze. "Because you're hurting. And that hurts me too." The next few days were quiet, tender in ways Bella didn't expect. Waylen began checking on her more often. Nothing invasive, just passing by her door, asking if she needed anything, dropping off ginger tea himself instead of sending staff. He wasn't overly affectionate, but his presence began to feel like a thread weaving through her day, calming, steady. And Bella, though she tried not to, started to look forward to it. One night, around midnight, she couldn't sleep. The babies had been restless all evening, kicking, rolling, twisting. Her body ached. She walked barefoot to the kitchen, craving mango slices, wrapped in a soft robe. To her surprise, Waylen was already there, leaning against the counter, eating puff-puff from a brown paper bag. He blinked. "You too." She laughed quietly. "Couldn't sleep?" He held out the bag. "Want one?" She took 2, biting into one slowly. This tastes like Festac." Waylen smirked. "I had the chef bring in street vendors this week. Said you liked real food." Bella blinked. "You did that for me?" He nodded. Silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. She walked toward the balcony, and he followed. The night breeze was cool, and the sky above Banana Island shimmered with stars. Bella leaned against the rail. Waylen stood beside her. "How many kids did you want?" she asked suddenly. He raised a brow. "None, initially." She chuckled. "Then triplets must feel like a death sentence." He smirked. "Honestly, it terrifies me. But when I saw that scan," his voice softened. "It did something to me." She glanced at him. "What?" "I felt like I finally mattered to someone I hadn't even met yet." Bella's heart squeezed. She stared out at the night. "I wanted to help my neighbors. That was all. Be a surrogate. Get paid. Fix my mom's heart. Move on." Waylen nodded. "But fate had other plans." "Do you believe in fate?" He looked at her, his voice low. "I do now." A few days later, the nurse confirmed the babies were healthy. 2 girls and 1 boy. Waylen didn't react in front of staff, but later that night, Bella caught him sitting in the nursery, just staring at the cribs. "What are you doing in here?" she asked. He didn't look up, just imagining what they'll sound like. She walked over and sat beside him. "You're going to be a good father," she said softly. He turned to her. "You really think so? I see the way you move around me now, the way you listen, the way you show up even when you don't know what to say." Waylen said nothing. Then, after a moment, he reached for her hand, just a light touch. But for Bella, it felt like something massive cracking open inside her. Meanwhile, in the guest wing, Waylen Danjuma held her wine glass too tightly. The private investigator had returned with nothing. "She's clean," the man said. "No scandals. No secret lovers. Nothing but a struggling girl who took care of her mother." Rosalind's lips thinned. "That makes her dangerous." The man frowned. "I thought you wanted dirt. I want her gone." Back in the nursery, Waylen still sat with Bella long after midnight, her head resting on his shoulder. "You should go rest," she murmured. "So should you. But this is peaceful." He nodded. "You bring peace." Bella turned slightly to look at him. His jaw was strong in the moonlight, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen. She didn't move away when he leaned slightly forward. Their foreheads touched. No kiss, no rush, just shared breath, shared understanding. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I never needed anything more," he replied. Bella had just returned from a prenatal checkup. When she heard the voices, she hadn't meant to overhear. She had only paused at the hallway near the east wing because the orchids on the marble console looked wilted. But what she heard next stopped her heart. "She's a mistake," Madame Rosalind's voice snapped from the sitting room. "A temporary vessel carrying your heirs. She's not your equal." "I don't need her to be my equal," Waylen replied, voice steady. "She's poor, Waylen, from the gutters of Surulere. Her mother sells acra on the street." Bella's throat tightened. Her palms turned clammy. Rosalind continued, "You think this is love? It's pity, infatuation. Maybe she's young and soft and makes you feel alive, but she will never fit in our world." There was silence. Then Waylen spoke. "You're wrong. You'd throw away your name, your legacy for this girl?" Bella leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. "She's not just a girl," Waylen said. "She's the mother of my children. She's stronger than any of us." Rosalind scoffed. "You're blinded." "No," Waylen replied. "I'm awake for the first time in my life." Bella couldn't hear any more. She turned and ran. By the time Waylen returned to the master wing that evening, Bella was packing. "Bella," he asked, stunned, "what are you doing?" She didn't look at him. "Leaving." "No, you're not." "Yes," she snapped, voice shaking. "Because I will not be the woman everyone whispers about. I won't be the scandal that ruined your family name." He took a step forward. "What did you hear?" "Enough," she choked. "Enough to know your mother will never accept me. Enough to know I'll always be a charity case in this house." He sighed. "Bella." She spun around. "I never asked for this, Waylen. I never wanted this life. I came to that hospital to help someone else. And now I'm pregnant, humiliated, and fighting a war that isn't even mine." He froze. He had never seen her so broken. Then he walked to the side table, pulled out a brown folder, and handed it to her. She frowned. "What's this?" "Your mother's hospital file. Full clearance. Cardiac surgery paid in full. Medications. Post-op care. Transport. All covered." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. She looked up, eyes wide. "You paid for this?" "Yes." "You never told me." "I didn't want gratitude. I just wanted you to have peace." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You say you care," she whispered, "but all I hear is your silence." Waylen moved closer, his voice low. "Then hear this. If you leave, I lose the only thing that's ever made me feel human." Her lip trembled. He reached for her hand. "Stay. Not for the contract. Not for the babies. For us." Bella's voice broke. "I don't know if I can trust you." Wayland's eyes darkened. "Then I'll earn it." The next day, the Danjuma family held a private brunch. Socialites, cousins, board members, all dressed in lace and silk. Bella, standing at Waylen's side, wore a modest white gown and low heels, her belly now visibly round. She felt like a lamb among lions. But Waylen stood tall beside her, hand on her lower back, always in step. When his mother approached, her eyes sharp like a hawk's, Bella braced herself. "Rosaline," Waylen said before she could speak, "from now on, you will treat Bella with the same respect you give me, or you can excuse yourself from my life entirely." Rosaline blinked. The entire garden fell quiet. Waylen continued, voice deadly calm. "You may not like her, but you will not disgrace her. She's your grandchildren's mother, and she's the only reason I haven't walked away from this empire." Gasps. Bella turned, stunned. Rosaline stepped back, her face pale with rage, but she said nothing. For the first time, she was speechless. Later that night, Bella sat in the nursery, staring at the moon through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Waylen entered quietly and sat beside her on the rug. "I meant every word," he said. "I know. You still want to leave?" She shook her head. "No." "Why?" She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me." Waylen reached for her hand, kissed her knuckles. "Then let's fall together." It began with music. Low jazz floated through the mansion, soft saxophone notes melting into the velvet air. Bella followed the sound barefoot, her silk robe brushing against her ankles, belly heavy beneath it. She paused at the edge of the grand piano room and saw him, Waylen, not in a suit, not in control, but in a white t-shirt and dark joggers, fingers gliding across the keys like he was writing a love letter with every note. He didn't see her, or maybe he did, but he didn't stop, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a stranger in his world. She felt like she belonged. Later, they sat in the garden, under fairy lights Waylen had asked to be installed that same afternoon. The soft buzz of crickets filled the air. Waylen poured her a glass of hibiscus juice. "I heard you crying last night." Bella glanced away. "Hormones. Maybe." She turned back to him. "Maybe it was more than that." He waited. Bella took a breath. "I used to think love had to look a certain way. Like fireworks. Like loud laughter. Like someone closer to my age who understood youth and fun and struggle." Waylen didn't move. She continued, "But now, I think love might look like this. Like a quiet man who reads baby books before bed. Like someone who holds me when I can't hold myself." He looked at her, eyes soft in the night. "I've never been called love before," he said. Bella smiled. "Then you've been spending time with the wrong people." The next day, Bella asked for something simple. To cook dinner. The staff looked confused. "But Madam, Chef Henri, I want to make it myself." She rolled up her sleeves, tied a scarf over her head, and got to work. Jollof rice, spicy peppered snails, fried plantain, steamed vegetables. It was clumsy, chaotic, but hers. When Waylen walked into the dining room and saw the spread, he stopped. "You cooked?" "Yes." "For me?" "For us." He took a bite and groaned. "Bella, if I'd known you could cook like this." She laughed. "You might have married me on purpose?" He smiled. "A real one." "Exactly." They ate, talked, teased each other. For the first time, it felt like a real marriage. Like two souls choosing each other in the middle of a storm. Later that night, Waylen walked into her room and found her rubbing shea butter on her belly. "Stretch marks are already showing," she murmured. He knelt in front of her, gently took her hands, and said, "They're beautiful. They're proof that something powerful is happening inside you." Bella blinked. "You really see me like that?" "Yes," he whispered, "and more." He rested his head against her bump. One of the babies kicked. "Whoa!" He laughed, eyes lighting up. "That one's going to be a warrior." Bella placed her hand on his hair. "Do you want to know a secret?" she whispered. He looked up. "Always. I didn't just agree to the contract because of the money, or my mother." Waylen sat upright. "Then why?" "Because something told me Even back then, that you'd protect me. That no matter what the world said, I'd be safe with you. Silence. Then Waylen said the one thing he'd never said to any woman. I'm in love with you, Bella. She blinked. He stood, walked over to the drawer, pulled out a small, dark red box. I was waiting for the right time. But I'm not going to let anyone else define what this is anymore. He opened it. A stunning, vintage gold ring sparkled in the lamplight, a teardrop sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Bella gasped. I know we're already married, but that was paperwork. This is my real proposal. She stared at the ring, stunned. Waylen, I want a life with you, not a transaction. A home, a real one. You, me, our babies, and whatever comes next. Bella's eyes flooded. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, soft, slow, certain, not as a man protecting his name, but as a man finally claiming his heart. The Galla was supposed to be a quiet appearance. Waylen had insisted on it. Just a short introduction, then we leave, he'd promised. No cameras, just our presence. It was a fundraiser at the Lagos Arts Foundation, filled with politicians, CEOs, and the wives of men who made their money in steel, oil, or silence. Bella wore a long emerald green dress that hugged her curves and concealed her 7-month bump beneath delicate chiffon. Her curls were swept into an elegant updo, her lips painted deep plum. She looked like royalty, but she didn't feel like it. Her feet ached. Her back screamed. Her babies were restless. Still, she smiled and posed when Waylen introduced her as my wife, Waylen Danjuma. The crowd whispered. Some nodded respectfully. Others stared. One woman murmured, Is that the girl from Surulere? Bella heard. She always heard. But Waylen squeezed her hand, grounding her in his warmth. You look tired, he said softly. I'm fine. But she wasn't. The lights were too bright, the air too thick. She shifted from one foot to the other as Waylen stepped aside to speak with the Minister of Infrastructure. Bella walked toward the refreshment table, reaching for a glass of water, and suddenly the world tilted. Her vision blurred. The glass slipped. Someone screamed, and Bella collapsed to the floor. It was chaos. People rushed. Waylen's voice thundered, Call the doctor. Now! Bella felt nothing, only the dull pulse of her own panic. Somewhere far away, she heard someone shout about preeclampsia. She was lifted, carried. The lights moved. Sirens. A cold hospital bed. White coats and beeping machines. Then blackness. When she opened her eyes, everything was dim and quiet. The smell of disinfectant filled the room. Monitors beeped gently. Her belly felt heavy and tight, and her arms were wrapped in cords. Bella? Waylen's voice. He sat beside her, unshaven, tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. Where? She croaked. You're okay, he whispered. The babies are okay. You fainted. Blood pressure spike. They're watching you closely. Tears pricked her eyes. I was so scared. I was too. He reached forward and tucked a curl behind her ear. I thought I was going to lose you. You didn't. Don't ever do that again, he whispered. I didn't plan it. She half laughed, half cried. Waylen brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. You scared me, Bella. And I don't get scared. She stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Waylen never left. He took calls from the corner, ate meals in silence beside her, read articles on high-risk pregnancies, learned to say Braxton Hicks like a pro. When Bella cried from stress, he held her. When she screamed from back pain, he ordered 3 new specialists. When she told him she hated her body, he kissed her scars and whispered, Your body made miracles. I will never let you forget that. On the last night before she was discharged, Bella found him asleep in the armchair, cradling one of the baby's new ultrasound photos in his hand. She stared at him, this powerful man who had become her quiet strength. She reached over, cupped his cheek, and whispered, Waylen. He stirred. I need to tell you something. He sat up concerned. What is it? I've never felt safer in my life than I do with you. His throat tightened. And I've never been more terrified to lose anything than I am to lose us. Waylen leaned in. You won't, he said. Not now. Not ever. Back at the mansion, Waylen redesigned her entire suite. Softer lighting, a maternity massage chair, new curtains, calming art. Even the scent diffusers had been changed to lavender. Bella stepped in and blinked. Did you do all this? For you. She walked into the middle of the room and turned to face him. You know, you're not the man I thought you were. No, I thought you were cold, calculating, dangerous. And now, you're warm, protective, still dangerous, but in a way that makes me feel like nothing could touch me. Waylen stepped forward, cupped her face gently. You are my family now, Bella. And you're mine. They stood like that for a long time, forehead to forehead, heart to heart, surrounded by the quiet promise of a future worth fighting for. The contraction started at dawn. Bella sat upright in bed, clutching her swollen belly, her breath shallow and uneven. At first, she thought it was just another bout of discomfort. She'd grown used to them, but this pain was different, deeper, sharper. Waylen, she gasped, her voice shaky. He was already by her side, instantly alert. What is it? She gritted her teeth. They're coming. Within 10 minutes, the mansion erupted into movement. The private doctor called. The car prepared, bags packed, and Bella, dressed in a soft maternity gown, was carefully helped down the marble staircase. Waylen never let go of her hand. In the back of the car, she tried to breathe through each contraction, sweat beading along her hairline. He held her close, murmuring encouragement, his jaw clenched. You're doing great, he whispered, voice hoarse. She squeezed his hand. Don't leave me. Never. The private suite at St. Edward's was already prepped when they arrived. Nurses moved swiftly, efficiently, guiding her into the delivery room. As they helped her into the hospital bed, Bella suddenly grabbed Waylen's arm. I'm scared, she whispered. His face softened in a way she'd never seen before. So am I. Tears welled in her eyes. What if something goes wrong? Waylen bent down, touched his forehead to hers, and said, Nothing will happen to you. I won't let it. The labor was intense. Bella screamed, cried, pushed through hours of agony, her face pale, hair clinging to her skin, her body trembling from the pressure bringing 3 lives into the world. Waylen didn't leave her side once. He wiped her forehead, whispered affirmations, cursed under his breath when her pain spiked, and held her hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to the earth. And then the first cry filled the room. A girl. Moments later, a second, another girl. And finally, a loud, piercing wail. A boy. Triplets. Bella sobbed, her arms too weak to hold them all, but her eyes never left their tiny, perfect faces. Waylen just stood there, stunned, his heart cracking wide open. He wasn't prepared for how small they were, how powerful they already felt, how deeply he loved them. Later that evening, Bella lay in bed, exhausted, glowing, 3 tiny lives tucked into bassinets nearby. Waylen stood beside her, shirt sleeves rolled up, holding one of the girls in his arms. She looks like you, he whispered. She kicks like you, Bella said, smiling weakly. He sat beside her, still holding the baby. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For carrying them, for surviving, for staying. Bella reached up and cupped his cheek. You're their father now, Waylen. No more contracts. No more pretending. He looked at her. I never pretended. I know. He bent forward, kissed her lips softly, and whispered, You gave me everything I never knew I wanted. The next morning, the Danjuma name was trending. Photos leaked. Waylen Danjuma, billionaire, holding his newborn daughter, looking like the proudest father in the world. The caption read, The Ice King melts. Rosaline Danjuma saw the news from her estate. She said nothing, just stared at the screen, lips tight. Beside her, Mariah muttered, He really loves that girl. Rosaline's reply was quiet, but heavy. Then she's Whan. Back in the hospital, Waylen sat in a chair near the window, cradling all 3 babies in his arms, A nurse had helped arrange it so he could hold them at once. Bella watched from her bed, eyes shining. "You look like you've been doing this all your life." Waylen chuckled. "I've only been a father for 10 hours. You're already better than most." He looked up at her, eyes tender. "I never thought I'd get this. A family. Peace." She reached out her hand. He took it. "We're not perfect," Bella said softly, "but we're real." And with that, a new chapter began, not built on contracts or legacy, but love. The Danjuma mansion glowed in soft morning light. Golden beams spilled across marble floors, through the sheer white curtains of the nursery. Bella stood by the window, arms folded across her chest, watching the gardener trim the hedges outside. 3 bassinets sat behind her, each one filled with a piece of her heart. Her daughters, Naya and Zuri, slept side by side. Her son, Liam, clenched his tiny fist in a quiet fight against the world. And yet, her mind wasn't at peace. A question had been gnawing at her since the birth. Was this real, or was it just gratitude? Did Waylen love her, or did he simply admire her for surviving something she never asked for? She turned when she heard the door creak open. Waylen entered, carrying a cup of tea and a smile that made her heart ache. "Morning," he said softly. She managed a tired smile. "Thank you." He placed the cup on the dresser, then studied her face. "You haven't slept." She shook her head. "I've been thinking." He stepped closer. "About?" Bella didn't hide the tremble in her voice. "About us." Waylen stilled. "I need to ask you something, and I want the truth," she said. "Are you in love with me, or just grateful that I gave you children?" Waylen's entire posture shifted. He walked over, gently took her hands. "Bella," he said, "I built companies, won awards, buried enemies, but nothing has ever challenged me the way loving you has." She blinked, startled. "I'm not grateful," he said. "I'm honored. I'm not just in love. I'm undone." Tears spilled from Bella's eyes. "But why me?" she whispered. "I'm not your world. I wasn't raised in it." Waylen smiled, brushing his knuckles across her cheek. "That's why," he murmured. "You never wanted my money. You wanted my soul." Later that day, Bella took a long nap while the babies were being watched by their nurse. When she woke, the mansion was unusually quiet. She stepped out into the garden and gasped. Fairy lights were strung across the trees. A soft path of white rose petals led to a candlelit gazebo where Waylen stood in a crisp black shirt, holding a velvet box in his hand. Bella's breath caught. He turned, his smile gentle but sure. "Bella Danjuma," he began. "We were thrown together by accident, but everything since then has been a choice." He dropped to one knee. "This ring isn't about contracts, or legacy, or Danjuma Empire. It's about us." He opened the box. A new ring glistened, a deep emerald-cut diamond set in rose gold, elegant and timeless. "Will you choose me again, not as a billionaire, not as a name, but as a man who is completely, foolishly, and hopelessly in love with you?" Bella's lips parted. Tears flowed freely now. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times, yes." He stood. She threw her arms around his neck and kissed him like the sky wasn't watching. That night, they danced barefoot in the garden under the stars. Just 2 people. No headlines. No legacy. No past. Just love. 1 year later, the Danjuma estate shimmered under the golden light of a late Lagos afternoon. The laughter of toddlers spilled from the garden, where Naya and Zuri chased Bubbles barefoot across the trim lawn, their twin curls bouncing in the breeze. Liam sat calmly in his play tent, trying to stack alphabet blocks with the kind of focus that mirrored his father. Inside, the mansion was quieter, slower, wiser. Bella stood at the edge of the nursery, watching them with a soft smile and a warm ache in her chest. 1 year, one beautiful, chaotic, miraculous year. She hadn't just survived. She had bloomed. She was no longer just Bella from Surulere, the girl who came to the hospital to be a surrogate. She was Bella Danjuma, wife, mother, center of a legacy she never sought but now carried with grace. And her heart still beat differently whenever she heard him coming. The soft footfalls, the scent of sandalwood and musk, the presence that always filled the room before he even entered it. Waylen, "Hey," he said, voice low, as he stepped into the doorway behind her. He carried a bouquet of fresh hibiscus from the garden, her favorite. Bella turned, eyes locking with his. He had changed, too. The once cold, aloof billionaire was now a man who smiled easily, who carried his children without assistance, who left meetings early to read bedtime stories. And tonight, he looked at her the same way he had in the hospital when she gave him everything he didn't know he needed, with awe. "For me?" she teased, nodding at the flowers. "For always," he murmured. He leaned down, brushed his lips against her cheek, and whispered into her ear. They're asleep. Finally, Bella raised an eyebrow. "All three," he smirked. "A miracle, which means—" She laughed softly as he wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Your plans. I've had them all week." He kissed her neck, slowly, reverently, then took her hand and led her to their bedroom. The room was different tonight. Candles flickered on the nightstands. Jazz played low from the vintage speakers. Rose petals trailed from the entrance to the bed, where white silk sheets had been freshly changed and turned down. Bella stopped at the foot of the bed, her heart racing gently. "Waylen," he turned to face her, cupping her face with both hands. "No more talks about business. No board meetings. No legacy. Just us," he whispered. His thumb brushed along her jawline. She leaned into his touch. "I want to touch you like this," he murmured. "Not as the mother of my children, not as my wife, but as the woman who owns me completely." Her breath caught. He kissed her, slow, deep, and full of devotion. Her robe slipped off her shoulders, pooling at her feet. His hands moved over her body with reverence, not lust, like rediscovering a language only they spoke. He took his time, laying her gently on the bed, covering her with his body and warmth. They didn't rush. They had all the time in the world. Every sigh was a memory. Every kiss, a vow. Every movement, a confirmation that this, them, was not a mistake. Her fingers slid into his hair as his lips moved lower, her back arching into him as she whispered his name like a prayer. "Waylen." He held her face as their eyes met, and in that gaze, she saw everything. The man, the father, the lover, the warrior who had chosen her above power, pride, and tradition. "I love you," he said, voice raw. "I know," she whispered. "I feel in my bones." Their bodies moved together, not in wild desperation, but in deep, slow worship. Each touch was a reminder of everything they'd endured. Each kiss a promise of everything still to come. Afterward, they lay tangled in each other, limbs intertwined beneath the soft sheets. The candles flickered low now. The music had faded, but the silence between them was rich. Bella rested her head on Wayland's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He brushed her hair back, lips pressed to her forehead. "You gave me the world. You gave me a home," she whispered. And in that sacred quiet, surrounded by moonlight and memory, Bella finally understood. She wasn't just a girl who had been chosen by fate. She was a woman who had been chosen by love, forever. And so, from a mistaken hospital room, to a contract written in urgency, to a love that bloomed in silence, Bella Puccini, the girl who only wanted to save her mother, found herself chosen, not by money, not by legacy, but by a man who never believed he could love. And Waylen Danjuma, Lagos' most powerful billionaire, discovered that the greatest empire he'd ever built was a home, with triplets in their arms, fire in their hearts, and peace wrapped around their love. They proved that even the most accidental beginnings can lead to the most unforgettable destinies, because sometimes the real legacy is love.